Welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Ashwati. Students, in this lecture, I'm going to discuss about a very important feminist thinker from your Western political thought or political thought, which is the unit number 2 of the UGC-NET syllabus. Mary Wollstonecraft, she is a contemporary during the French Revolution and a very important political thinker, although her writings did not garner much attention during her lifetime, but after, like we can say that by the 90s itself, her ideas actually became more prominent. As you know that the feminism, it has went through 4 waves. Like the first wave, which looked up to the let's say that the issues of representation, it looked up to the political rights, the civil rights of women. Then the second stage or second wave that we can say, that was a wave when the idea was to look into the socio-economic problems faced by women. Then in the third phase, the idea was to address the issues of, let's say, the cultural problems. Then after, it had the influences from the postmodern writings as well as the post-colonial understanding. Then the fourth wave that we are now, or we can say that is a contemporary one, and which looks up to the issues not just of one gender but of the third gender as well. So various other aspects are also being addressed there. Ecofeminism is also part and parcel. So Mary Wollstonecraft, who is from the period of French Revolution, we can understand that during those days, for a woman to write on various aspects, the boiling issues of that time was not that easy. So Mary Wollstonecraft is one of the most prominent thinker from that of the Western philosophy. So let's look at her life sketch. Mary Wollstonecraft was born in April 1759 in London. It means that she belonged to England. In 1787, she began working as a reviewer and a translator for Joseph Johnson's Analytical Review. In those days, women actually stepping out of the household and working in the public sphere was not an easy aspect. It required much guts as well. And receiving education in itself was not that easy. Secondly, Mary Wollstonecraft, when we look at her life sketch also, we find that she had faced troubles at home. Then after, she witnessed the death of one of her best friend as well. And Mary Wollstonecraft is that person who invested much on education as well. Like she looked up to the case of like how the education can be improved. All these things are actually very important aspects. She became part of a prominent circle of radical intellectuals, artists, and dissenters. In those days, being a radical was not easy. This was also the period of conservatism. Edmund Burke's writings were there. And this, as I mentioned earlier, that this was also the period of French Revolution. And French Revolution brought forth a very interesting aspect, that was the rise of the third estate. The third estate, which belonged to that of the business people, artisans, farmers, or we can say that the working class population also, like they were part of the third estate. And the first and the second estate belonged to that of the aristocrats and nobles, clergy as well. The first estate, obviously the clergy. And the first two estates did not pay taxes. The third estate paid the taxes. And because of the rising economic crisis and political crisis in France, the third estate actually waged a revolution. So it already, like we can say that it sent shock waves across Europe, because it was that moment in the history of Europe, or we can say that moment in the history of modern Europe, that it gave a kind of an idea that yes, the working class population or the people at the third tier can actually revolt against the government. They can be dissenters, they can be revolutionaries. So here you can see that Mary Wollstonecraft, she became part of a prominent circle of radical intellectuals, artists, and dissenters. And let me tell you one more thing, which I have already mentioned in many of my previous lectures also, that in order to understand any political concept, first you need to know that who has spoken about it first. Secondly, you need to know about a life sketch of the thinker. Without understanding the life sketch, it becomes very difficult to understand the ideas. Every political thinker, whether it is Confucius, Plato, Aristotle, Franz Fanon, or John Rawls or Karl Marx, you need to know what they actually lived through. The political events, the social events, the economic crisis, or like various types of influences are there. Did they come across any sort of war or conflict? Whether they were part of some refugee program, whether they were belonged to some aristocratic families, it does matter. Like Mary Wollstonecraft is that person who during that period, she lived through various countries of that time. Like she made many travels, and due to some of her personal reasons, some of her like career reasons as well. So we can understand that through the, like, you find their reflections, or we can say that their travel, or we can say that their travels actually influence their writings as well. Her first book was published in 1786 and her two vindications in 1790 and 1792. So here you can see the year, the timeline. Next, I'm going to discuss about her major works. Students, as this also I have mentioned in all my previous lectures, that you have to maintain a separate copy for the thinkers and their books, so that you can flip through the pages every day, and it is going to be very helpful in your UGC-NET examination, because every time in UGC-NET you find either direct or like, you know, in some options also you find questions regarding the textbooks, the books written by the thinkers. So Mary Wollstonecraft has written all these works. Now the first one, Thoughts on the Education of Daughters, with reflections on female conduct in the more important duties of life, 1787, the year of publication. A Vindication of the Rights of Men, very important work, in a letter to the Right Honorable Edmund Burke, 1790. Then A Vindication of the Rights of Women, with strictures on moral and political subjects, published in 1792. An historical and moral view of origin and progress of the French Revolution and the effect it has produced in Europe, published in 1794. Letters written during a short residence in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, published in 1796. As I have already mentioned that she made travel to various countries in those days. So here you can see that you can also read her letters also, like the letters written during a short residence in the Nordic countries, or we can call the Scandinavian countries, the Sweden, Norway, Denmark, 1796. And she was quite impressed by the land system in Norway. And Maria, or the Wrongs of Woman, published in 1798. This was one of her last work. So here you can see that this is a whole set of, like, she has written many works, and you have to understand them. You have to keep on reading about them again and again, because there is a high possibility that such questions may also be asked in the examination. In the UGC-NET, you often get questions like either you have to put these publications in a chronological order. They may actually jumble up the writers and their books, and you may find any of these works in the match the following question also. You may also find identification direct question like this book was written by which author. So it becomes very important that you have to memorize all these works in a chronological order, and it is very important that you should know the chronology plus the years of their publication. I know that it is not that easy to memorize them, but if you write them down in a copy, and when you every day, I would say that every day when you flip through the pages, like it is very easy to memorize things as well, or like to increase your memory strength, or let's say that in order to memorize in a better manner, you can use a combination of color pens or flow charts and various other methods, whatever suits you. And I would like to say that be creative as much as you can, because for UGC-NET syllabus, it is quite vast and only these things are going to be helpful. Be creative, and it is a very good learning process as well. She criticized Edmund Burke in those days. Or we can say that Edmund Burke belonged to the political tradition of conservatism. He was highly critical about the French Revolution. He supported the English Civil War, but he did not support the he did not support the French Revolution. He said that the political upheaval that happened during the Glorious Revolution, all these things actually, according to Edmund Burke, they were actually a product of where, let's say that there was a gradualism, and it did not dismantle the traditional institutions. So he was concerned with the French Revolution because it had actually, let's say that it had the potential to shake or it had dismantled the traditional institutions. So Wollstonecraft argued that tradition alone cannot guarantee rights. According to Edmund Burke, he looked more into the duties and obligations rather than the rights. Secondly, according to Wollstonecraft, it has to be based on the notions of rationality and equality. Obviously, the conservatives, they did not believe in the ideas of rationality as well as equality. And they have actually invested more time on human imperfection. She also attacked aristocracy and advocated republicanism. So this is very important, that what sort of ideas she promoted. She actually attacked the aristocracy or the elitism, or let's say the traditional institutions, which actually have maintained a kind of a hegemony, and like it created a kind of a classes like the governed as well as the what we call it the governing class. So she attacked the aristocracy and she advocated republicanism. Now here, her famous line, I really think that women ought to have representatives. See, this can be called as the first wave of feminism. Instead of being arbitrarily governed without any direct share, allowed them in the deliberations of government. So here you can say that she spoke about extending the representation, or let's put it in a very simple way, she spoke about giving, or let's say that she demanded for the political rights and civil rights for women. Moving to our next slide, on virtue, like what she spoke about virtue. She said that it should be non-sexually differentiated moral principles in the public and private sphere. Let's say that there is a kind of an understanding in those days that the public sphere belongs to men and the private sphere belongs to women. So public sphere, where like a masculine, let's say that the gender roles were created, like women are better at homes, the men are they go out for work, etc. So they have access to various liberties, but women, they are supposed to do the household chores, or let's say that rearing of children and taking care of the household was actually a designated work for women during those days. Women were not allowed to have a participation in the public sphere. So she said that there should be no differentiation or the moral principles, like differentiation the moral principles that govern the public and the private sphere. According to her, she said that there should not be any sort of segregation or separation of the gender roles, etc. Secondly, on rights, she spoke about men's right over women must be eliminated. It means that the rights enjoyed by the men should also be extended to the women. It should not be like that only men are enjoying the rights and women are actually excluded from the same. On reason, or let's say that rationality, according to her, the God or the nature has provided the power of reason or rationality to both sexes, men and women. On marriage, this is very important one, and this is also associated with that of her idea of citizenship and democracy as well. She said that marriage to be transformed into a relation of mutual respect between equal and loving friends. She has accorded a very important position to the family, or let's say the marriage as an institution. According to her, the husband and wife relation should not be based on domination and subjugation. It should be based on a kind of a friendly relation between two people, two friends, or let's say that husband and wife relation is not based on hegemony over one over the other. It should be like a friendly relation. And she spoke about the shared parenthood as well. According to her, shared parenthood was actually an important foundation for a good citizenship as well. She also demanded for reformation in the education sector, where she supported the co-ed education, like for both girls and boys should study together, because she, according to her, it is the school where the children learn about patriarchal norms and values, so it should be eliminated. There should be a co-ed education as well. Although when we read through her ideas, we should keep it in mind that she was writing in the 18th century. So which may not reflect the realities of the current times, but she was ahead of her time, I would like to say that. Yeah, only the thing is that her ideas were discovered in the 20th and the 21st centuries, and it became part of the study circles as well. But she left a very deep imprint in the, let's say, in the realm of feminist studies or women's studies as well. So students, that's all in this lecture. Stay tuned. See you in another lecture. Bye.